As a songwriter and guitarist, a common question I often get asked is whether I write the music or the lyrics first. How do I come up with song ideas? Where do the melody ideas come from? And how do I start building chords and turning these into full songs? Well, for me, as a guitarist, 99% of the time, I will start with a guitar in hand. You see, I don't necessarily start with the music. The music, lyric ideas and melodies all sort of evolve at the same time, but the ideas almost always begin with chords on a guitar, followed by some sort of melody idea, then expanded upon in some creative way. So in today's video, we're going to look at the entire process of coming up with ideas on a guitar. And we're going to do that in a slightly different way because, well, I've already covered the processes in previous videos. They were just in separate videos and not packaged together as one entire tutorial. So that's what we're going to do. Kind of like when a substitute teacher just plays a video of a pre-recorded lesson. You see, it's all about balance. Sorry if you can hear that, by the way. It's absolutely hammering it down here in the West Midlands. So if you've just clicked on this video, you'll likely be wanting to know about composing music with chord progressions, or are just interested in how and why chord progressions work. Now, full disclaimer, I am relatively useless when it comes to music theory. I mean, I'm not utterly useless. It's just not my strongest category within guitar and songwriting. But here's the thing. I have a fairly simplistic mind, which enables me to think outside of the box in order to put things in a box in ways that are easier to understand. At least to me. And I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments if I don't. Sorry, this rain is horrendous. So to start the conversation of what makes a good chord progression, we're going to talk about photography. Hear me out. So I enjoy dabbling in photography. I'm not particularly any good at it, but it's nice to have hobbies. And when trying to learn photography, one of the first things you come across is the rule of thirds. So to the unacquainted, cameras often have grid lines in the viewfinder or LCD screen that separate the image into 3 horizontal and 3 vertical sections. Imagine a hashtag, but wider. Sorry, I just had to stop filming for a bit there because the rain was like cats on a tin roof. No idea if that's something people actually say. Sounds like it should be though. Right, so back to the rule of thirds. The idea being that your subjects, be them people, buildings, the horizon, are placed along the intersectional lines to bring balance to your composition. Now, don't ask me why this works. I think our brains are just hardwired to process visual information in this way. Perhaps because we have our dead center vision and our peripheral vision. 1, 2, 3. Now, an important point is that images don't need to be perfectly balanced, i.e. symmetrical. Our brains seem comfortable with the concept of third lines making it a balanced image. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, as far as I can fathom, there are no comparable rules to the rule of thirds within guitar or music. But there are patterns within music, particularly within chord progressions, that I think we might be able to summarize with something as simple as the rule of thirds. We'll call it down, up, down, up, down. Or maybe somebody could think of a better name. So let's start with the most common chord progression in modern music. The 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression. And in the key of C, it's C, G, A minor, F, and C to close the loop. Right, let's grab a guitar. Minor Z. So we'll all have heard this chord progression multiple times. It goes like this. So the C chord is our home chord. When we're playing in the key of C, the C chord obviously has all the notes of a C chord. C, E, G. Think of this as our grounding chord. So the G chord dominant fifth is the furthest we get away from the home chord, and as such it feels furthest away from home. From the C, it kind of feels like we've lifted up and off the ground. So let's chuck that one up here. Now the A minor, despite being numerically the furthest away, is actually the closest chord in our progression to the home chord. And that's because it has two of the same notes, the C and the E. It just moves our original open G note up one tone to an A note, creating an A minor. So it has more of a melancholy feel being a minor chord, but other than that, it feels very close to our home chord. So we're going to put this one back on the ground. So our 4 chord, the F, doesn't feel as far away or up in the sky as the G did, but it's still very unhomely. Listen to the progression from A minor to F, and it definitely has an on the ground, up in the air, home, away feel to that transition. So our F chord is going to go up there, and including our home C chord to close the loop, the picture has balance to it. Home, away, home, away, home. Or down, up, down, up, down. It's a pattern, a balanced pattern, and it works in musical composition because it has tension and resolution. Now it's not perfectly symmetrical, at least when we hear it. A minor isn't quite as home as the C chord is, and F perhaps doesn't quite have the same altitude that the G has, but zoom out and we can see balance in our musical composition, much like the rule of thirds in photography. Now this works if we start moving our chords around. Let's try C, F, A minor, G, closing on the C. Still works as home, away, home, away, home. And the shape is still balanced. So what if we start on a different chord? The A minor. Well, as long as we maintain the pattern, home chord followed by an away chord, and so on and so forth, it still sounds balanced. Now this still works if we flip the whole thing on its head. Let's start with an away chord or up chord. If we maintain a balanced pattern, we get F, C, G, A minor, and back to F. It has a different feeling of tension to it as it never quite gets resolved, always landing back on that 4 chord, the F chord. And that can be a very clever way of enticing the listener to stick around to hear what happens next. It kind of begs the listener to keep moving, but the progression remains balanced, and that's why it still sounds pleasing. It's just upside down. But what happens if we mess up that balance? Throw it out the window. We're creatives, we do what we want when we want. Let's go with G, F, A minor, C, and back to G. Up chord, down chord, down chord, up chord. So apart from looking like a constellation, it isn't balanced. Does it sound balanced? No. It's not necessarily wrong, it contains all the permissible chords, and I can't stop you using it. Just like the rule of thirds, rules are often there to be broken, and many of the best images break the rule of thirds. But there's a time and a place and often an accumulated level of experience when it comes to breaking rules. This progression could, for instance, work as a bridge or a middle eight or an outro or something intentionally jarring and a bit off. But that's the point, really. It just sounds a bit off. There's no balance. And it's all about balance. So a well-balanced chord progression is key to any good song. There ain't no willy-nilliness in songwriting, I tell you that. But let's be honest, there's only so many chord progressions that exist in modern music and the 12-note musical scale. How do we turn this into this? There's nothing wrong with playing basic chords using a simple strumming pattern. Whether you're just here for the guitar tips or are into songwriting and making music of your own, many of the world's most beautifully poetic songs have been accompanied by nothing more than just a simple strummed guitar. But the likely reason we're all here on YouTube watching guitar improvement videos is that we want to progress. Maybe add some flourishing into our guitar playing, maybe start coming up with our own guitar parts and riffs. And if you're a songwriter or want to write songs, you probably already know that songwriters need to come up with catchy hook lines and melodies that listeners remember. Yes, these are usually sung melodies, so lyrics put over a top line melody, performed by a talented vocalist. But don't forget the instrumental melodies, usually the backbone of a song that people recognise before the vocalist even comes in. So, we're going to need a smidgen of music theory, but not much. I promise you that even if you instantly forget the theory, you'll still be able to use the techniques. So the song started with a C chord, or a C major. Now a C major is made up of 3 notes from the C major scale, C, E and G. The C major scale consists of C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and it carries on up D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and so on. It's useful to know where all of these are, but not essential for now. Now, if some of the notes from the C major chord are swapped out for different notes from within the C major scale, or extra notes added in from within the scale, it'll result in a variation of that C major chord. If, for instance, we take this first finger off, that changes the C note to a B note, which is the 7th note in the C major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Making that a C major 7. And that's as easy a chord change as it gets. Literally just take one finger off, changes from a C major to a C major 7. Now if we add the little finger or pinky finger onto the D note, which is the 9th note of a C major scale, we get a C add 9. Now let's strum those 3 variations of a C chord to create a sort of melody. And now we're finger picking. So next we went to a G major chord. Now, a little bonus tip, when we move from a C chord to a G, it can be quite nice to not play the low G bass note and instead land on this B note as our low bass note. This creates a G over B, as it's technically still a G chord, as it has the 3 notes of the G triad, D, G, B. But the lowest note is now a B note, hence a G over B. So now adding the first finger onto this C note, as we did with the C chord, doesn't make this a G major 7, as it made it a C major 7. That's because this C here isn't the 7th note of a G major scale, it's the 4th note. 1, 2, 3, 4. Making this a G sus4, sometimes shortened to G sus, which is actually the most holy of all guitar chords. Jesus, Jesus, get it? Jesus? Anyway, it's technically a G sus4 over B, as we're omitting that low G note. So then if we add our pinky back on this D note as we did earlier, some people may refer to this as a G5 or a G add 5 as we're adding an extra fifth, being the D, but technically that D's already in the G triad. So we'll just stick with a variation of G over B. Side note on naming conventions, don't worry if you don't remember any of this. Even I'm not entirely sure why you get C major 7, D sus 4 and G add 9. I think I once knew, but the reasoning clearly wasn't interesting enough for my brain to store that information. So, if you can retain music theory, it will without doubt put you in good stead as a guitarist. You'll go far, young'un, but don't lose sleep over this stuff, the naming conventions and the theory behind chords. Just work on the technique and muscle memory will take over. Right, those G variations. Finger picked. Then we had a D minor. So this time we're using a similar, almost identical melody pattern, but instead played on the high E string. So like this. So removing this first finger of our D minor chord opens the F note to an E note, which is the 9th note of a D minor scale, making this a D minor 9. Then add the pinky, making a D minor sus 4. And then finally we ended on the G major again, but this time we will play the low G bass note, not the G over B. And again, we'll play some notes between the G major and the G sus 4 position to close the loop. So in full. We now have a melody. But I do still find, particularly as guitarists, that as we improve on guitar and things like understanding chord progressions and melodies, it can still be tricky turning these ideas into actual songs. Sometimes we need a set of processes, some tried and tested steps, or maybe even restrictions to help focus our creativity. What are you doing, Ivy and Florrie? I asked my 5 and 7-year-old daughters. We're doing the 4-colour challenge, Ivy replied. What's the 4-colour challenge? I asked. It's where you have to colour in a picture of a unicorn, but using only 4 colours each. Winner is the picture that looks the prettiest. This got me thinking, can we become more creative in our music by placing creative restrictions on ourselves? Austin Kleon makes the case in his book Steal Like an Artist that creativity is subtraction, stating nothing is more paralysing than the idea of limitless possibilities. The way to get over creative block is to simply place some constraints on yourself. There's an example of this from Dr. Seuss, who wrote The Cat in the Hat using only 236 different words. His editor bet him that he couldn't write a book using only 50 different words, so he won the bet by writing Green Eggs and Ham, one of the best-selling children's books of all time. So how can we take the practice of placing constraints on our creative processes and use that in guitar playing and maybe songwriting? We could... You have 1 hour. Grab a sandwich, a guitar, and a notepad and see what you can come up with in a set and condensed amount of time. Won't you take me as I am? Leave my heart before it slides away. Won't you leave me where I stand? For it's all too much. Now, the objective is to try and finish a song, but don't be too hard on yourself if you don't. The important thing is that we've created something in under an hour that didn't exist 1 hour ago. It may not even be a very good song, but imagine if you built this into your routine just once a week. So for the non-lyricists out there, perhaps you could place some physical constraints on your guitar by removing some of the strings. As The Guardian put it, C6 Steve was the most unlikeliest cult star of the noughties, an ex-itinerant pensioner who played the shit out of a 3-stringed guitar mic'd up with gaffer tape. Steve tuned his guitar to open G, but with all the D strings removed, so GGB. But you can do whatever you want. Just play around and see what you come up with. It's tempting to think that to really show how sophisticated we are on our instruments, we need to play something complex using chord progressions that you need a master's of music theory to understand. Well, here are some songs that use just 2 chords. In fact, my own song Over and Over uses just the chords C and F, and it's available to stream on all good streaming platforms.
Oh, do it to me over and over and over and over again. Please take it with me over and over and over and over again.
For those of you that have recording software and know how to produce music, perhaps you could see what you can come up with using just one instrument. Brian Eno, off of Roxy Music and countless other music production shenanigans, says that he develops limitations before starting a project. He starts it by saying, this piece is going to be 3 minutes and 19 seconds long, and it's going to have changes here, here, and here, and there's going to be a convulsion of events here, and there's going to be a very fast rhythm here, and a slow-moving part over the top of it. I think what Brian is trying to suggest here is to get yourself organised before you start. Having a recipe, a roadmap, a battle plan will help focus you on moving towards the finished piece. Lay down your ground rules. What genre are you focusing in, and what's your reference track? What do you want your piece to sound like when it's finished? How many beats per minute? Is it fast or slow? Will this song have a bridge or a pre-chorus, or is it a simple A part, B part? What's the arrangement of your track? Will accompany instruments build as your song progresses, or is it straight out the gate, all in Green Day style? And if you're thinking this songwriting and creativity is all very well, but I'm just here for the guitar tips, what have you got for me, Matt? Well, for you, my friend, I'll give you this. Restrict yourself from playing all styles and genres of music. All but one. And focus on that one style of music for however long you decide to do the challenge for. A week, a month, a year. For example, you may like playing a bit of everything, a jack of all trades, but you could try focusing only on the blues for a month. This will reduce your chances of just noodling and instead focuses your attention on blues guitar technique. Understanding every position on a fretboard that works in the key of E, every lick played between chords, blues rhythms and percussive elements of a song. The list goes on, and when you come back to playing everything after a month of blues, you'll almost certainly have developed as a guitarist. And if not, well, you'll probably no longer enjoy playing blues guitar, so one less genre to bother with. So I do hope that this little mash together of content has been useful and not just a blatant substitute teacher attempt of an easy day at the office. But if you'd like me to delve into more of these topics or maybe bring you along on a songwriting session, then please do let me know in the comments. Please also consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. This is generally a guitar related channel with perhaps a strong leaning towards songwriting, creativity and general music making. So if that's something that you're into, perhaps I'll see you in the next video.